Power.
Danilo's free, and it goes to get wide.
First time we've seen them attack them, and there's Francis! Well, that's what I wanted to see Robinson do. Tyler one, he scores! And the city ground goes ballistic!
Here's Bob Williams. And he's through here! And in the end, Forest will say it doesn't matter how you play as long as you win it.
Yeah! Forest are Premier League!
Hello and welcome to Roadside of Trent, here to discuss the 2-0 defeat to Spurs as Forest slipped to 17th in the league table after a third home defeat in a row. One goal in our last 4 games and what seems a host of problems. Here to go through the game and other topics are Lee Clark, Christian Brown and Reiss Lane as ever. Morning chaps, morning live chat. 11 of you joining us so far on a Sunday morning again. Nice to see you all. Get involved in the topics as we go along. Hopefully, we'll get you involved in the conversation. But let's start with you, Lee. As you were the last to join us this morning, delaying the start. What did you make of an unchanged team? Did you expect anything else from Cooper, as such as the performance from last week against Wolves?
No, I didn't expect anything else. It had to be done, really, didn't it? I think we all said last week on the podcast that the team gave everything for him, and I think whilst we're still searching for a consistent run of form, he's going to back players that will ultimately back him. So, I wasn't surprised at all. I guess if I was going to be surprised, I thought maybe one of the other midfielders might drop back in. But obviously with Sangare being injured, that kind of forced his hand a little bit with Koyate keeping his place. So, no surprise. And I think it was the right call, to be fair. I mean, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and you can say we lost the game, but I think after that performance at Wolves, he had little choice but to stick with the 11 that played in that game.
Yeah, I agree with that on all fronts. I think the rest of us would as well. Reiss, we'll get into the game at the early start. I think Heung-min Son got in within 2 minutes of the game, and I kind of thought, I think I turned to you and said that's a goal, and then Turner made a great save, to be fair to him, but I kind of thought it was going to be a long night from then on. What did you think of the early exchanges of the game? You're on mute, mate.
First time I've done that. I think we all thought Spurs were going to have more on the board, didn't we? I think you'd have to be, you'd have to be a bit of an idiot to think not, really. But yeah, it was a good save from Turner. One of the few he did make, but we'll talk about what happened later. But I mean, the first half. I mean, we obviously they had that chance early on, but I thought the first half, we gave them as much as we got, really. I mean, there was some thunderous challenges which we've all kind of been saying we wanted from players. I mean, Ryan Yates was absolutely smashing into folk. He must have took some heavy blows to his body, and I thought first half wasn't too bad, but as we'll discuss, the goal comes at the worst possible time again, doesn't it? The only issue for me is, I mean, I think I said this on last week's pod. I agree with Lee. He kind of had his hand forced. He's got to go with that same team. But if we want to kind of get out, we probably needed another attacker on there. So we had a free to give us a bit more of an outlet. I thought Alanga and Gibbs White, it was hard for him to get out at times. And we was literally preying on Spurs making mistakes, which they did a couple of times. Alanga had that shot, which Vicario saved, which the happy flaggy linesman flagged, couldn't wait to flag. But yeah, it wasn't a bad first half. It's just, again, we've conceded at a terrible time, as I'm sure you'll come on to.
Yeah, Christian, Reiss obviously touched on a few good points there. Tackles flying in, Yates, Nico Williams, Koyate, I thought really set the tone in terms of that. And it was actually quite nice to see. I think for the last 18 months, I've not really seen anyone put a tackle in such nature for Forest, which has been really annoying in some sense. But for me, the biggest annoyance was Anthony Alanga's chance, where I know the linesman does flag, but from what you said in our group chat, he's actually onside. And for me, he should score, really.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's one of those that had it gone to VAR, 100% would have been overturned. Like, it was, I've watched it back, and obviously they're looking at it, and Carragher is like, hang on, that's onside. And I think, like Reiss sort of said in our chat as well, it was very annoying because it felt like he couldn't wait to put his flag up for Forest. But as soon as there was a tight call for Spurs, he was like, no, I'll keep it down and wait. It's like, come on. Like, we just see Marco Silva explode at the Fulham Newcastle game, saying that, officials, they get swayed by the home pressure too much, or the Sky 6 or Sky 7, now if you include Newcastle, pressure too much. And, because he was saying that, we didn't get any fouls given our way, the slightest touch was given against us, etc., etc. And it felt a bit like that, the linesman. And it was the same when we had, it was the same, obviously, officiating team, as Lee pointed out, when we had Villa. And like we said, there was a couple of times in that game where Taiwo was put through on sides and he flagged anyway. And it's like, come on, how have you not learned your lesson? Like, this is where it's just very, very frustrating again, because obviously it sort of bypassed the technology in a way, because they're going, no, we don't trust you to use it, so we're going to go with our own instincts, even though we've been told not to put our flag up for tight calls anyway. And then you get that as a result. But ultimately, it was inconsequential because Alanga should have scored. You're right. You go put through 1-on-1 like that. He just seemed like he just completely rushed his shot. There was very little composure there. He just basically was like, get it on target and hope for the best, which you kind of expect a bit more from that. I mean, I've obviously refused to get sucked into the whole Brennan Johnson versus Alanga debate. At the minute, Alanga's output is actually probably higher than Johnson's was this time last season. And over the course of a year, will exceed what Johnson gave us on current statistics. But I think Johnson probably scores that, whereas Alanga should have done a lot better.
Definitely, I agree with that. Lee, the first goal is really bad timing for Forest, because I actually thought we gave them a lot to kind of think about in terms of set pieces, maybe not so much as clear-cut open play chances, but Brennan Johnson unfortunately went off for Tottenham. Kind of a good thing for us, because he was always, we know what his threats are like, and he got quite a good reception as he went off with concussion by the looks of it, unfortunately. Hope he recovers well in that sense. But as soon as Dejan Kulusevski goes to the right-hand side, you kind of know what to expect from him. He gets a yard on Harry Toffolo down at your end, and Richarlison has a simple task of just getting his head on it. And I don't know what you thought of Turner, because there's been a bit of a debate in our group chat whether it's his fault or not. But as someone who was closer to the action and has played in goal, I feel like you could give us an insight there.
Anyone who's ever seen me play in goal will say otherwise, I guess. But no, I actually don't think it was a good thing that Johnson went off for us, because I don't think Kulusevski would have been on that side of the pitch if Johnson was still on the pitch. And I don't think Johnson would have been capable of whipping such a wonderful ball in like Kulusevski did. It's very naive defending I think if you stop the source, then obviously you stop the goal. Kulusevski makes a career on playing on that right-hand side and whipping inside on his left foot. So yeah, a bit naive from the fullbacks. I think Kouyaté was over there as well, helping out, wasn't he? From those two. In terms of the goalkeeper, I'm not going to blame the goalkeeper too much for that one. I think in that situation, he's damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't. With where Richarlison puts the header, if he stays on his line, he probably doesn't get it anyway. And then everyone says, why you stayed on your line? It's just a bit unorthodox how he does stuff. I mean, is that typical of an American? They're kind of eccentric, aren't they? They're over the top with pretty much everything. And it was just, I think Reiss alluded to it in the group chat, that it looked a bit awkward. It just kind of, he came for it, but didn't kind of come for it in the conventional way that a goalkeeper comes for things. So again, it looks a bit weird, but I'm not going to blame him for that one. I think he's going to get enough blame for the second one, and rightly so. So yeah, I just think it's a great ball. It's one of those goals in the Premier League that when you play teams like Tottenham, you have to accept that if they get a chance like that, they're going to score. I suppose Bolly's got to take some criticism as well. He was there Richarlison was his man, wasn't he? So he's going to have to take some criticism as well. But yeah, like I say, it looked awkward. It looked a bit unorthodox from Turner, but I don't really think we can call that a goalkeeping error. It was such a great ball. It was one of those that when United used to play and Beckham used to stick it on the head of like Sheringham or someone, or York and Cole, it was one of them where you can't miss. It was just such a great delivery. That yeah, I'm not going to be in the game to start using those sort of goals as goalkeeping errors.
Yeah, I don't think Kulusevski is going to struggle to put those sort of balls in later on in the season against whoever a fullback he plays against, in all honesty, because he kind of just reminds you a bit of Robin. You know he's coming inside, just don't know when he's going to do it. And with that kind of quality, then and into the corridor of uncertainty, as I like to call it. It's a dream for strikers to get onto. Second half came Reiss and Forest huffed and puffed. We actually had a goal disallowed through Anthony Elanga. Great ball from Nico Williams, who I thought was excellent yet again. I know, Christian, I'm so glad you're on it this week because he did play well for a second time.
Man of the match for us.
Yeah, Elanga's obviously been tarnished with the brush of being offside a lot. For me, I know he's not a striker, but he does have to do better. But actually, he was quite close to being actually onside for this one. It's such an unfortunate time because we were getting on top of Tottenham, I thought, in that moment, in all honesty. I didn't think Tottenham were really threatening our goal.
Yeah, I mean, there's about 3 of them who are offside, aren't they?
Yeah, but he's the closest one to being onside, to be fair.
I'm not really sure why it took so long for VAR to call that offside, personally, but here we are. The funny thing was, Adam, we kept getting it out to Nico Williams, and I literally said to you, we need to stop crossing it in the air, get it in on the floor. We're not going to win a header against Romero and Ben Davis Elangas, and it's just not. I was like, get it in on the floor. And what did we do? We got it in on the floor and we've scored. I know, unfortunately, we're offside, but it's kind of needs must, isn't it, with Elanga? I mean, he's not a striker. I just don't think he's kind of got that striker's instinct. I mean, we were saying, weren't we? He was chasing Romero a couple of times, and I was like, look, just nudge him in the back as you're chasing him, wind him up a little bit. Whereas Romero got in possession of the ball and he just passed back to the Vicario, and Elanga turned around and ran back. You've just got to put yourself about a bit. He's clearly a winger, and like I said, it's needs must, isn't it? I mean, the actual striker we've got, who we bring on, is nowhere near good enough, in my opinion. He come on again, offered absolutely nothing. I mean, I'm not saying Origi is Harry Kane level, but he must be sat on the bench thinking, what's going on here, really? Why he isn't really getting any sustained minutes with the options we've got. But yeah, it was just one of them things. Wanted the key moments, the fine margins in games, I'll use it, didn't just go for us, did they, really? Friday night, that bit of luck you need. I'm thinking of the Williams one, what hit the post in the last minute, hits the post, hits Vicario and goes to safety. Now, if that was us, it probably hit the post, hit Matt Turner and gone in. That's what happens when you're towards the bottom and it's not going for you. So, yeah, that moment, and I'm sure the next moment you're going to discuss, pretty much killed it for us, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Go on.
Can I just say very quickly? So I know obviously we're seeing it from a Forest perspective, but I do think we have to give some credit to Spurs, because that line that got Elanga and Kouyaté and the other, I can't remember who was offside, was literally like a ruler. It was so straight. It was like the classic Arsenal line from the 90s. It was played to perfection. And I know, obviously, yeah, you're right. Maybe we should have turned the run a little bit better, but you have to give credit where it's due. That was really good defending from Spurs.
Yeah, it's the classic offside trap, isn't it? I don't personally blame us for that goal or anything staying onside. That's just one of them, really. I mean, even the flag happy linesman thought it were onside. So what does that tell you? Yeah, Spurs are a very good side. Very good. Got a very good manager. So we all said last week, if we'd have got a draw last night, Friday night now would have been pretty happy. It would have been a good result.
Definitely. There was obviously a big discussion about the next incident and to do with goalkeepers, but we'll go through the incident. I mean, Christian, you've obviously rode the I don't want Matt Turner in goal ever again throughout the whole season. You've been quite fairly consistent on that, although you have gave him credit when credit's due. That's fair enough. But your overall opinion on him has never changed in that you don't think he's very good. And it was 2 howlers in one moment for me. The kick to Kulusevski is one, and then the actual goal itself is another. Talk us through it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be sound like a smart ass, but I did. I told everyone. I told you all. I said if he's our number one keeper for start of the season, he gets replaced by January at the earliest. Like, he isn't good enough. He is someone that, if we got promoted as a Championship side of him in goal, the first thing we say as a newly promoted Premier League side is, right, we need a better goalkeeper. He isn't good enough. There's a reason why Arsenal couldn't trust him to be a number 2, let alone anything else. And yet he comes to Forest as a number 1. He is not. There's no getting around it. He is awful, and it's laughable, really. And this is where it does come down to Cooper. And like Reiss has said many times, like, help yourself, Steve. Lacademos did nothing to warrant being dropped. And you can say, yeah, okay, we lost 5-0, but none of those goals were his fault. I mean, like Lee said at the time, if you're blaming him for that second goal, the first Jimenez goal, for example, then it's very clear that you don't watch enough football, because there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can do about any of the goals. Like, you can go through them, dissect them one by one. It's a tap in by Willian. It's obviously, Jimenez had played through 1-on-1. The third goal is a complete defensive howler show from Aina and Felipe. And, Yates makes a mistake for the fifth one, that again put through 1-on-1, and the fourth one, again, he's left isolated on his own back stick. He can't miss. So you can't exactly say, oh, yeah, if Academia's going to be better for any of those goals. People just got it into their head that because he's not making a lot of saves, that, somehow he's a bad keeper. It's just ridiculous. He should never have been dropped. And, we paid the price for that yesterday on Friday night, because, as you said, the kick out is appalling. And we've said this so many times with Turner. It looks like whenever he gets the ball at his feet, it's like he's got a bomb there. He doesn't know what to do with it. He just kicks it and hopes for the best. There's no, that is not Premier League standard. I'm sorry. It's not even League One standard to be like that bad with your feet. And, it goes straight to Kulusevski. And then, fair enough. There's still a chance at that point to redeem it. And there's still a chance, you can, to shut down, close down the angle. And to be fair, from the angle he's coming in at, all we can go is near post, really. And then, like you said, Quaverists from Turner just puts his hand there, just goes straight through him. It's not good enough. It isn't good enough. It hasn't been good enough from the start. We should never have signed him. You look at signing Arsenal number 2s, for example. Fulham signed Bernardo for £3 million. We spent more than double that on Matt Turner. So you have to serious questions has to go to recruitment for that, because that's beyond abject, and it's going to cost us. Like I said to you at the time, I tweeted actually, if he's number 1, get ready for Preston away. We're now, coming up to Christmas. We're luckily only 5 points above the drop zone. It could be even worse. And by given what we've got to come next with Newcastle, Man United, come the start of the year, we could well be in the bottom 3. And that is ultimately on Cooper for playing such a terrible goalkeeper. You live and die by your decisions. He's clearly picked someone that isn't good enough.
Yeah, Pat in the comments has said Turner is done, and Raphael has said Vlack looks way more composed, and I have to agree with that. It's another blunder that's cost us at a really key moment in the game where we're looking like we could get back into it. Obviously, having a disallowed goal, but everyone's still up for it, and then that happens, and that kind of just kills all the confidence. Everyone's head drops, and it's like, well, that's game over, because we've not looked like coming back from any point of this season. Reiss, what you got to say?
Yeah, I'm just to add to Christian, I'm always willing to give players a chance, and to be fair, I do think Turner is a decent shot stopper. I know that second goal does go against that, but at this level, you can't kick as bad as he can, because you'll just get caught out, because teams will realise, they'll press, as Brentford did. I mean, he fouled Wissa. I don't know how the referees did pick up on that. How he shifts feet is far too slow. It's too slow, and teams will prey up on it. And in the modern game at Premier League level, I'm sorry, but with his kicking ability, it just makes him overall not good enough to play at this level, in my opinion. I know that's harsh. Some people find that harsh, but it's just a very harsh reality, I'm afraid.
I'm fed up of all these American tacticos going, oh, but look at his save percentage. It's actually quite good. Watch him with your eyes. He isn't good enough to play Premier League football. I'm sorry, he just isn't. He can't kick. He isn't that good a shot stopper. I'm sorry, I disagree with that. I actually think that, most of the saves he makes are fairly routine, and then you get ones. Look at the Brentford goal, for example, a header straight acid that just goes straight through him. He isn't good enough. I'm sorry, he's not. I said to you in the group chat, and yeah, there's probably an element of my head still fully not back on my shoulders after Friday night, but I genuinely don't think he's any better than Horvath. I really don't.
Well, I compared him to Horvath, didn't I? And a very, very similar style. And what did Luton do? They got promoted and thought, actually, he isn't good enough. So, yeah. And this is Luton with respect. We've been with respect a lot bigger club and been at the level for another year.
Another issue is moving on is Yves Bissouma gets sent off, Lee. And Morgan Gibbs White should probably shoot rather than pass in the incident where Jared Gillett actually does well to let play continue, and then before VAR stepping in and to give a red card. But we've been so bad this season against 10 minutes the fourth time. Fair enough, Lyle Foster gets sent off in the 94th minute for Burnley, but we must have had about an hour's this season against 10 men and not. I think we've had maybe 2 shots on target in that time.
I think it just sums up how we play in general. Whether it's 10 men or 11, it's just all a little bit passive. It's all a little bit negative. Um, every attacking player we seem to have just seems frightened to death to take any responsibility. When was the last time that a goalkeeper played against Forest and you think, wow, he's earned his wages today? I can't remember a time when a goalkeeper made, in the Championship you play certain teams and you think, bloody hell, it could have been 5 or 6, but the keeper's played amazing. When's that ever happened in the Prem?
Mm.
I can't remember ever.
No, I can't.
It's just
The only
frustrating. It's like they hear the rumblings in the ground and they think, well, I'm not going to get booed. I'm not going to get moaned at, so I'll pass it to someone else. Just bloody shoot. I just don't get it. I don't. Against 10 men, it should be the keeper that's clinging on for dear life. It should be the other team that's just fire some shots away. It's all too. I don't know. It's so frustrating because at this level, it's such a big opportunity against 10 men. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that every time in any game of football someone goes down to 10 men that the game turns on its head, because it doesn't always work like that. And sometimes it can. It's a bit cliched, isn't it? But the old cliche is it's harder to play against 10 men. Sometimes it can be because they get more bodies back and it can make life difficult. But we didn't even look like scoring. It's just really really frustrating.
Well,
You'd think we'd work on stuff like that in training. I don't really understand why we're so poor against 10 men. It just seems a bit strange to me.
when Basuma got sent off is where the shot should have come. Gibbs White was clean through, and he tried to play it to the side to Elanga. He literally had the whole goal to shoot at from the edge of the bar, and he tried to pass it. I mean, like Lee said, Vicario's not made a save again really until that header at the end.
Yeah.
You know, who was the last game? Everton, Pickford didn't make a save till the 90th minute, which was a pop shot from Murillo from 25 yards out. I mean, I didn't go to the Brighton game, so you guys probably have to tell me because I was at a wedding, but we're just not testing goalkeepers enough. I think I said that to you at half time, and I know Christian said about the Elanga one was offside, but one shot a half testing the goalkeeper at home. It's not the best feeling, is it?
This is the thing as well. I don't know if we'll come on to this subject, but when you talk about Cooper and people giving him credit and stuff like that, you've got to help yourself, and he's not doing. It's like if we had a couple of the last 3 home games we've played, Tottenham, Brighton, and Everton. On paper, with how Everton are playing as well, they're pretty tough fixtures. Brighton have just topped a Europa League group that's got Marseille and Ajax in. They're tough fixtures. I totally appreciate that in the Premier League you're going to get games where you have to accept that you're just not good enough to beat teams like that. But on home soil, we should be coming off thinking, right, we gave everything today, but we've just come up against a keeper or it might be a defender or a back four or whatever that's just been in inspired form. But we're losing games and not even having a go. It's like that's the frustrating part, that we're not even. And people always harp on back to like, oh well, we had one chance and we had this half chance. It's always half chances. It's never an heroic performance from an opposition player. It's always. I just don't understand it. I just think the subs as well on Friday night were just so beige again. It's like just have a go, get all the attacking players off the bench and just get them on. Just have a go. Show everyone, show your boss that you're willing to get this. Try something different. And it's just I don't know. It's just all a bit bland, and I just don't think he's at the minute. If Cooper went this afternoon, for example, I think he'd look back on the last month and say, I wish I could have my time again and do things a little bit differently. Because I think tactically we've just been all over the place for months, to be fair.
I mean, Chris Wood, come on, I don't think he even touched the ball. I mean,
He
I don't
touched,
think
he touched it and gave it away, Reiss.
Yeah, well,
That's what happened.
I mean, we put it in a few times. I don't think he even got off the ground.
Nah.
You know, and like Lee said, get the attack. I'd rather had it. This is a proper football cliche, but it's true. And this is what Ange's philosophy is. I would rather have a go at 2-0 down and they score in the 95th minute on the break and make it 3-0. And if we peppered their goal and let's say Vicario's made 3 or 4 great saves and they broke away and won 3-0, I'd say, well, fair enough. At least we've had a go. The keeper's in excellent form. You know, and I don't get why the media was battering Ange for it the other week against Chelsea, because they had a great chance to equalise. I'd rather that happen. Yeah, and a goal ruled out. I'd rather that happen. And I don't think, like we said, we had Toffolo's header, which was saved incredibly well, I must say, and Williams hit the post. But apart from that, what was it, 25 minutes against 10 men? There wasn't any sustained, I'd say, pressure where Tottenham were literally just hooking it clear in the hope, was they? There was a few times when they actually broke away as well.
Yeah. Christian, what did you add to add?
I think just going to touch on Lee's point about goalkeepers having a performance at the City Ground. The only one I can remember is Alisson last season for Liverpool. That is the only time I can actually remember a goalkeeper's come to Forest and had to earn his keep, because some of the saves he made that day were incredible. There's that one from Yates which he tipped onto the bar and out for a corner, which was a joke. Like, he had absolutely no right to get a fingertip to that, but somehow did. But yeah, I completely agree with him. I think like we aren't working keepers enough. We don't seem to have any real patterns of play moving forwards without Taiwo. I know obviously Reiss is going to say that, and rightly so, that he's probably our most important player in that regards, because we don't seem to have a clue on how to score a goal without him. But that makes you question as well, like what they're doing in training. Like, are they just solely focusing on defending? Is it solely focusing on containment? Because they look to have no ideas whatsoever when it comes to pushing forwards at the other end of the pitch. We just pour in both boxes at the minute.
Definitely. Before we move on to some slept on it thoughts, 57 people here. Pat and Jim are having a right conversation about Vlachodimos and Navas, Henderson and Turner. It's all kicking off in the comments. I think personally Vlachodimos has to come back in for the Bournemouth game. It's the only way forward on finishing on that note. And we will get into obviously Cooper, which is a repetitive.
Sorry, one more thing.
Topic.
I'll say if Cooper starts Turner on next Saturday, he deserves to be sacked on the spot. I'm at that point now, because you're literally signing your own death warrant if you do that now. He cannot play for us again.
Well, Cooper's put him back in, Antti, because he clearly probably trusts him more than Vlachodimos, but he's been repaid with that error on Friday night, unfortunately. You live and die by your decisions. This is what will happen in June with the Euros with Gareth Southgate. If he picks Calvin Phillips and he messes up and England go out, he will get handed for it. That's the job of a manager. You live and die by your decisions, and unfortunately that decision has cost us the other night.
Definitely. Well, let's get into some slept on it thoughts.
Red side of the Trent. Slept on it thoughts.
That's a thank you to Jimmy Allen, who does the Nottingham tune animations on Twitter. So if you go check him out, and Ian Finch, who's actually dropped us a slept on it thought this week. He did the audio. We will improve that to make it a wider picture. But let's get into some slept on it thoughts. So starting from the very top, that's Kez. Slept on it. Cooper has to go. Give a new manager a couple of weeks to get to know the squad and let him have a transfer window. Sacking Cooper any time later than this weekend is too late and would deny any potential new manager a chance at saving the season. Jerry Pritchard, frustrating night. In parts we were okay, but there's no offensive strategy. Alanga is bang average and Wood is just garbage. When we have a chance to shoot, the shot is awful. What do they do in training? Turner is a liability with his feet. Drop him. Brow 19. If you set up not to lose, then you're in big trouble. Remember the great man Brian Clough took us down. How long are we going to hang our hat on Cooper? Feels like Leicester vibes from last season. Sammy Amiobi. No, not the Sammy Amiobi, but need a goalkeeper. Don't feel confident with either. I'm not sure I completely agree with that. Rob Waite, committed performance, had some good chances, but lacking quality in the final third. Morgan Gibbs-White, for all of his talent, doesn't offer enough in terms of output, goals and assists. Need another big transfer window, including a proper number one. We and Cooper are in big trouble. Martin Fretwell, lack of quality final third and still schoolboy errors. Sarah, nothing seems to be working. Reiss Coy, no other team in the Prem makes as many mistakes nor mess up so many chances. Feeble going forward, and the players finally doing the non-negotiable elements of the game are masking a real problem. We are really in the midst of a relegation battle. James G. Matt Turner should never start a game again, but I'm not much more confident in Oddie. On a positive, Nico is cementing that right wing back as his own is stepping up. Morgan Gibbs-White much better down the middle, always too. The need for a striker and keeper in Jan is crucial. Slick Rick, time for a change. Mark Baker. Cooper has to go. He cannot coach a side with any ability to pass or retain the ball. It's all huff and puff with no end result. Our early game plan was to go long with throw-ins because it's the only way of getting the ball into the box. It reminds me of Tony Pulis Stoke era. 55 spirited performance, but Cooper clearly unable to get the best out of players available to us. And last but no means least, there's so many to go through. Yummy Bear, just back from the Curry House at Alanga, born offside, lots of effort, but sadly a distinct lack of quality in key areas. Turner back-to-back away games come up, one at Newcastle, 2 wins in 28. We are in big trouble. Thank you very much for everyone getting involved. It's it is what it is. Unfortunate at the moment. Obviously, the repetitive question and topic on mind is whether Steve Cooper, whether we stick or twist. Reports coming out and odds are saying Stephen Gerrard's the odds-on favourite. I think that's just naivety. It is looking like Oliver Glasser, the former Eintracht Frankfurt manager, who's favourite to potentially take over, won Europa League and plays kind of a similar system to what Cooper likes to play in the 3-4-1-2, or however you want to look at it in that respect. So kind of would suit the players we maybe have. I'm not sure on that front entirely without doing loads and loads of research into him or anything, but I've kind of got to ask the question again, guys. Lee, I'm going to start with you. But like, how long do we give him now? Because I know we lost to Tottenham, and you say, oh, it's Tottenham, we're going to probably challenge for the top 4 all season. But we said this last week, can't keep going from week to week.
No, it's a tricky one. Personally, I think he just gets the Bournemouth game. I think there's got to be something going on behind the scenes in terms of Marinakis not being able to convince the man that he actually wants to replace him to come to us. Because otherwise, I think he'd be gone. And I think we spoke about it on the way out of the ground on Friday. I think people need a little dose of realism here, because people seem to think that you look at like outsiders, like journalists are starting to harp on about it on Twitter, aren't they, and stuff. And it's like, oh, if Forest sack Cooper, they're definitely going to get relegated. Well, hold on a minute. We've had, this isn't Cooper's first bad run in the Premier League. We're now on our third bad run in the Premier League, and yeah, you can probably say the first one is down to the fact that we've not been in the league for 23 years. But I don't know. It's just a bit nauseating that the loving that Cooper's getting almost, because he's not without responsibility for this bad run. I think it can be factually correct to say that you're thankful for everything that he's done for us and appreciate that you'll never forget the memories of Steve Cooper managing the football club and the good times, because they've been amazing. But at the same time, he's not been without his flaws at this level. Let's not forget Steve Cooper's still learning at this level. And the argument to some will be, well, why can't he learn with us? Well, the simple reason for that is that we've got an ambitious chairman who wants to that's already plunged sort of 250 odd million into buying players for this manager to essentially be sleepwalking into another relegation battle. And in any walk of life, that just simply won't do. So I think people have kind of got to wake up to that. It's Nottingham Forest Football Club at the end of the day. It's not Steve Cooper FC. And I think ultimately, how long do we give him? The sentiment from Marinakis is nice, and even now you're getting people coming out saying, "Oh, Cooper doesn't deserve to work for an owner like Marinakis." Really? Cooper's getting more than an easy ride from Marinakis. If Cooper had been sacked a month ago, he couldn't have had any complaints, I don't think. We've won one game in 13, and people are somehow trying to justify it that, "Oh, it's Cooper. We've got to stick with him." Why? I just think it's baffling, and that's not me having a disrespectful rant about Steve Cooper, because, like I've just said, I'll always be grateful for Steve. He's given me some of the best days watching Forest that I've ever had. But ultimately, one win in 30. What other Premier League manager that's not part of I mean, even you could look at like Ten Hag. I mean, they're still winning games every now and again, aren't they? But it just doesn't happen. It's football. It's Premier League for all the clubs that aren't in that big 8, the Sky 8 as we call it. You're never more than 3 games away from the sack, and it must be on a bingo card somewhere that I say that on every pod. But it's one of those things where I just don't understand why he's probably looking at the Bournemouth game thinking it's the owner. I'm guessing is it's a winnable game. Let's give him every possible chance in front of our own supporters. But I just don't. I don't really see a situation. If we beat Bournemouth, yeah, the landscape probably looks a bit. I think all the 3 teams below us have got quite tricky games again next week. They probably lose all 3 probably lose again. We might win, we might not. It's just I don't really get what's going off at the minute, because I think if Marinakis was going to do it, would he have done it by now? I just don't. For me, he gets the Bournemouth game. If we don't beat Bournemouth, I think he will pull the plug, and he'll, even if he has to put someone temporary in for the Christmas period, while he tries to convince the man he really wants. But that's the only reason for me. I'm just guessing that, looking at it with a bit of common sense, I suppose. I just don't think he's been able to convince the guy that he wants, whether it's Lopetegui, whether it's that Glazer guy from Frankfurt. I just don't think either of them are probably looking at it and thinking, let's face it, you're not going to jump at it, are you? I think the squad is good enough, but I think at the same time, you're going to look at it and think, what's going off inside that dressing room? Is it ready for me? So yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, and even Bournemouth's not an easy game. They're flying. Obviously, had a sad moment in football yesterday playing Luton. Unfortunately, Tom Lockyer went down, collapsing, having a stroke, as reported. So we send our best to Tom Lockyer, his family, and obviously Luton fans and Luton Football Club. So on that one, but Tom Emerson in the comments, Reiss, has made a really good comment about Everton and Decore scoring 6 goals for Everton and Morgan Gibbs White having 1 goal and 2 assists, and how Everton would love Chris Wood and getting the best out of him, and blaming the players is quite a lazy statement. What's your thoughts on it? Because Pat has also added to that, like, where do the goals come from? We're not scoring enough goals and not creating enough good chances, are we really?
Well, I mean, that my opinion is Chris Wood is just not good enough. There is people who say, "Oh, we don't play to his strengths." Well, you've got to, as a striker, put yourself about at least. We put a few balls into the box last night. He didn't even get off the bleeding ground. With respect, you know, it's all right scoring a goal, a really good goal header past Sheffield United, who were awful, and also 2 against Luton, who at the time I think had pretty much resigned themselves already to going down. But of course, we gave them a little helping hand, didn't we? And ever since then, every time I've watched Luton, they're fighting. Where do the goals come from? Well, I said at the start, into really, we could have, should have. Well, I get why we went with the same team, but for the balance sake, it would have been better to push out if we had a 3 with Gibbs White as a false 9, Hudson-Odoi and Alanga either side, in their natural positions. Well, Alanga anyway. I mean, like I say, I've kind of gave Gibbs White a pass on this podcast because he has been playing out wide all season, and I've said it time and time again. He's wasted out there, but people say he was through the centre the other night, the Tottenham chance, right through the centre, perfect time to shoot. He tries to play a stupid pass to Alanga instead of just smashing it at the keeper.
Putting his foot through it, yeah.
Hit the target, yeah. Going back to Lee's point, I agree with a lot of Lee's point. I think he made some absolutely excellent points. The one I will disagree on, though, is I don't think it's about convincing a manager. I think it's because if Marinakis does sack Cooper, he brings in, say, a Lopetegui or the Frankfurt guy who, let's be honest, most Forest fans will know nothing really about. If they get off to a bad start, which looking at the fixtures after the Bournemouth game is pretty likely, I think it could go toxic really quickly, as I've said again, and that's his worry. I think if Steve Cooper hadn't done what he'd done for us in the past, I think he would have been gone quite a while ago, to be honest now. Because the harsh reality is it's 1 win in 13. And if Pep Guardiola's won 1 in 13, he's probably going to be shown the door. This is the reality of football. It's a results business, and it's all right playing well, and all the players, again, they gave 100% most of them the other night. You can't knock the effort, but we've lost the game. And it's about results at any level.
Guardiola's won 1 in his last 6, and people are saying, "Oh, can City still win the league?" They're like 4 points off top.
Yeah, well, like the media was saying, "Oh, can they still get in the top 4?" And that this is Man City, renowned for when it gets to the business end of the season, they're like a juggernaut, So I agree with Lee. I think if we were to not beat Bournemouth, I mean, because then you're looking at, with respect, away at Newcastle, I know are decimated by injuries, but their first 11 is still pretty strong. And then Manchester United at home, who I know have had a couple of bad results, but I bet they've still won in the last 10, 6 or 7.
Yeah, they were one of the teams of the league.
They always beat the poor sides. I mean, Bournemouth are on form, to be fair. I know they lost to them, and who else have they lost to in that period? I think they lost, obviously, they got Liverpool today. So they've always kind of beaten the lesser sides in that run. Unconvincingly, I must say, but they've beaten them. So, yeah. I mean, it is like you said, Adam. It's a game-by-game basis.
And it shouldn't be.
It's hard, isn't it? Because we're discussing this every week. And to be honest, I don't really want to discuss a manager's future every single week, but this is how it is. And like, again, what I agree with Lee, it wouldn't surprise me if we didn't win that Bournemouth game. They'd probably stick Warren Joyce in charge for Newcastle and Man U. And then somebody comes in at the start of the transfer window with it's about a 3-week break then, isn't it? Because I know we play Blackpool or Forest Green, but I don't think the next Prem game's until the 20th. So plenty of time then to work with the players, aside from the lads who are going to the AFCON. And I mean, as well, you look, Marinakis will look from his sense and think, well, I've brought some players in, like the likes of Andre Santos, he's not used. He's brought in 2 specialist wing backs so we can play with a 5 who are really quick. He's not used Montelo Tavares. He's brought in a goalkeeper who he's then dropped and stuck one back in who's made an absolute shocking error the other night. You know, like I say, these decisions are lived and died by. So, you know, I'm going back as well to the original question. You can't really compare us with Everton because they've got that siege mentality. I mean, I watched them last night. Burnley were absolutely dreadful. How we made them look half decent, I'll never know. Everton pinned their keeper in. They put it on their keeper from corner. What did they do? First corner, what come in? And Arna just rose above him and headed it in.
Yeah.
So, we don't seem to look like we know any of our opposition's weaknesses at the minute, do we? It's always about how can we keep them out, and it's very, very hard, mate, at the minute, because this league, taking defeats in this league, it kills you. To be honest.
70 people have joined us so far this morning. It's a good turnout for a Sunday morning. People are, I don't know, eating a breakfast cob, playing football, maybe curing a hangover, I'm not sure, but thank you for joining us. But there's a few comments I just want to mention. Emerson has put, losing to Spurs isn't a problem, not beating Palace away, then Brentford, Everton, Burnley or Luton at home is a major problem, and I completely agree. Football pundit, chance creation is horrific, has been since promotion, need a new manager. When are centre mids going to be allowed to make third man runs and nick a goal in open play? And I agree with that. We've not really had that since like Danilo.
Well,
someone's mentioned we've got 200 million pound strikers on the bench. I'm not sure where they've been hiding.
I'll make my last point. There's 2 key moments so far this season. One is the Luton debacle, because this has all stemmed from that. Because we as well would be 3 points better off than them. So what does that make? Is 8 points above them? I think it would. Is that right?
Yeah.
That is the main one. And number 2 is losing Taro, because, you know, as Christian said, I bang this drum on this pod, is our most important player. That is understated at the minute, because we are not even half the side without him. Not even half the side without him. He's a massive, massive miss. And the other night, do you know if he would have played the other night, would have got a result from that game? Because first half, when it was all blood and thunder, they were making a few mistakes at the back, and Tyro's just absolute chaos, isn't he?
Well, there was chaos
he would have backed into Romero and given him a hard night. We know Romero's a hothead. That's a negative. Knock him about a bit. You know, get him wound up. Get him sent off.
Yeah, definitely. Christian, I know I gave you kind of a hard task with Lee and Reiss kind of making a lot of good points. Something I wanted to pick up on, and a few people in the comments have already, but Cooper is not even picking the best available players to him, and it's kind of a bit of a worry that you're not picking a £35 million player who's gave up Champions League football in Ibrahim Sangare. Dominguez, who's like the king of the press from Bologna, as he's renowned for. Vlachodimos coming from Benfica and Greek international, not picking him. He's not helping himself, albeit but the players maybe not giving him what he wants, but that's his job, as Roy Keane would say, to motivate and get players to buy into his system. So really, has he got a leg to stand on when you're not picking your best available team and getting them to play how you want them to?
Well, it doesn't help. I mean, I don't buy the conspiracy theories that Sangare is like shunned. I do think he's genuinely injured. It's just so unfortunate, Sangare, isn't it? Because obviously we saw him at West Ham. He looks amazing. Like, he looked like, that's the player we signed. And then obviously he got that virus and international duty, came back like a stone light, or whatever else was okay for a half against Everton, and then very quickly wasn't. And obviously now he's injured. Then got dropped at Fulham after Fulham, and is now injured. I take that at face value. I think he is injured. I don't think they fall into that. I was a bit surprised not to see Dominguez come on for Kouyaté, especially on Friday night. I thought, because like as you said, you know, especially when they're down 10 men, it's like, you know, we're pressing, we're trying to like get in their faces a bit more. I thought he'd have been very well suited to that, and they would have been games with strengths. I thought so. It was a bit surprising not to see that transpire. But yeah, it's a little strange. I mean, I was ultimately going by he couldn't really drop anyone because of how they performed at Wolves. I guess the one thing I do find a little baffling though is the reluctance to play Origi in any capacity. Like we saw when he started at Fulham, Origi actually it was the closest thing we had in terms of a stylistic point of view to how we play with Taiwo, because we had a striker that could move and a striker that was running. We had a striker that was hassling the defenders, and fair enough. Obviously, we felt a bit. So it wasn't necessarily his fault. We felt a bit, and I felt it was very very strange that he hasn't really seen the light of day since. But I don't know. I think realistically, we all said, didn't we? Like, if we're in a position where at Christmas we're in a relegation fight, Cooper will likely go. And now we're basically in that position. So I agree with Lee. I think he'll get the Bournemouth game. And if we lose that, it'll be curtains. It probably will, even with Newcastle, Man United coming up after that, they probably will give that to a caretaker. Just because.
I think even if we don't win that.
Yeah,
a draw's not really good enough,
it's not enough, is it, really? But then we don't know. We don't know because, like you said, what caretaker's going to fancy those games? So I really don't know. I mean, to be honest, I find that the notion that Marinakis is this trigger-happy sort of hire and fire merchant has been somewhat dispelled with Forest. I know there'll be people listening are sort of might raise their eyebrows at that. But if you look at the record of Olympiacos, it's very different to what it is with Forest. I mean, if you go through his time, okay, Karanka resigns. Admittedly, that was due to interference from Brentos, which obviously was a Marinakis hire. We call that naivety on their part, the board's part, for obviously not fully understanding what it's like to run an English club at that moment in time. Then it was O'Neill. O'Neill should have been sacked after the first game. He should never have got the whole season. That was a disgrace. The fact we even hired him was a disgrace for the most polarizing time in as to be a Forest fan, really. As what other Championship club? I think even Rotherham would have gone near O'Neill, let alone a team chasing the top six. Absolutely, some of the prehistoric footballs.
We lost at Rotherham. I went to that game. I don't know.
I remember we had fans generally coming out back in the Miracle Man saying Rotherham's a tough place to go.
But at least Roy Keane stood in front of their throw-in.
Yeah, literally.
That was a good moment, wasn't it?
Disgrace. Absolute disgrace. Then obviously what came after that, and it was Lanucci after that. Lanucci should have been sacked after the Stoke game in hindsight. He should never have had the summer to oversee it. That was a complete failure. When the board persisted with him, they went, you know what? Okay, let's see how the summer goes and let's see how the first few games of the season go. We'll give you a chance to sort of get back on track. Obviously, it didn't work. Was sacked. Who was after? I was thinking Chris Hughton. Chris Hughton should be sacked after the Derby game. After we drew one at Derby, with a 2-week international break, with the transfer window still open for a few more days, that's where he should have been sacked. And we've even
argued as well with Hughton, he could have gone at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't really doing much,
it was job done, to be fair. It was keep Forest. Because that was before we realised you could lose your first 4 games.
But I mean, the style of
COVID season, wasn't it?
I know, but the style of football and that was hideous, wasn't it?
It was dreadful, but it was
we were all defensive, saying give him a pre-season. Then he didn't want players like Brennan Johnson, who turned out to be a £45 million player in a season's time.
In Houghton's defence, I will say that the remit was survive at all costs at that stage. We lost our first 4 games this season. It was very much just get us out of the mess. So what I can't allow is that for after the pre-season, us are still playing the same way, because that was a joke. That shouldn't have been happening with the players that we had at his disposal. So I will give him some credit for that. But equally, again, he should have been sacked after the Derby game, because it was 1 point from possible 15, and it was dire. And then now we look at Cooper. Cooper could have gone feasibly after the Leicester game. We lost 4-0. He could have gone very feasibly after we lost to Leeds 2-1, because at that point, I think all of us were convinced we were going down. He could have been sacked after we lost 2-0 to Man United. We'd have no shots on target. It was the most lifeless display at City Ground we've had in a long, long time. We didn't. And he could have been sacked over that 5 times over the last 5 weeks. He hasn't been yet. So this notion that Marinakis is just going to sack everyone in sight, I don't think we can necessarily say that with any conviction anymore, because he's proven, especially at Forest, that he's given his managers time. He's given them every opportunity. And like Lee said last week, I think he genuinely wants it to work for Cooper, because he knows, as Reiss alluded to, if he does sack him and whoever comes in starts off badly, it's going to turn very toxic very quickly. So it's very difficult. I mean, I still think, if we don't beat Bournemouth, it'll be 1 win in 14. It'll be no home wins in 4. And, and there's more than ample grounds to be sacked. And yeah, he might go to Palace afterwards, Cooper. And I'm sure, we know he's a very good coach. We know, he probably will be an established Premier League manager for a long, long time, because that's how good he is. But equally, at the minute, something is not working. Just because it isn't working here doesn't mean it won't work somewhere else, for example. And it just feels like when Cooper came into the club for the first time, he obviously ripped the handbrake off. And now it seems like he's sort of put it back on and he's sort of stuck a bit. Like, we're just trying many different things. Like, it just feels like one rebuild too many, personally. But then obviously that comes down to a breakdown in communication with recruitment, because obviously he's gone to them saying, "Oh, I need X players in this position," and then he's gone, "Right, okay, here's Montiel, here's Tavares." He's gone, "No, not them." Here's Andre Santos in midfield. No, not him. Here's Origi, a striker. No, not him. So you're sort of like, well, okay, you're now hamstringing yourself by not. So something's clearly broken down along the lines there. So it's difficult. I mean, I think obviously we've tried to do too much too soon. We've all sort of said, like, we want to transition from this deep block side into a side that's playing more progressive. But in the games you mentioned earlier, the ones we'd be losing in or not winning in, we've tried to be progressive and it's not worked. Like Burnley, like Everton at home, for example. Like we've tried to be more, playing football rather than playing to our strengths, which kept us up last season, i.e. not having the ball, and it hasn't worked. So I don't know. I mean, it's a very difficult decision to make. I'm still not entirely sure where I stand in it all. I just think that, it's an unenviable task. There probably is an element that Lopetegui or Glasner aren't fully convinced at the minute, although I find that a little off, because I think Lopetegui came in at game week 17 for Wolves, they're bottom of the league. So, it's not like, but it's just difficult. I mean, I just hope. I mean, obviously, the thing is, like we said, this is how the fickle nature of football. If we beat Bournemouth 1-0 next week, which for what it's worth, I think we will do, amazingly. I think I'll explain why my predictions. But if we beat Bournemouth 1-0 next week, then what? Because let's say Luton lose, then we're 8 points clear. It's like, what are we complaining about?
Yeah, Lee, just finishing off before we move on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think another element that probably is playing into Marinakis' thinking, and I think Christian made a good point yesterday. If Luton had won yesterday, the gap would have been 2 points. I actually think we'd be having a very different podcast if that had been the case. Because at the minute, as daft as this sounds and as deluded as people might call me, it still means one of those. At the minute, it still means one of those 3 god awful teams below us. That's going to come back to bite me on the arse, isn't it? It still means them winning 2 games, and you can't see them doing it. I mean, how many games have they won between them all season? I'm not sure, but I just think Marinakis is probably looking at it like Christian just said. If we win next week and they all lose, the gap all of a sudden becomes 8 points, and it's like, hold on a minute, it's 3 games now. So I don't know. I think Marinakis, for the stick he gets, is a very clever man, and I think at the minute he just views it as, well, we can keep losing because the teams below us are that awful. So let's kind of take our time with the appointment, and if we do get to a decision where we've got to get rid of him, i.e., if Luton had won yesterday, then obviously we make the right call. So yeah, there's lots of different factors going on in the background, I think. But it's strange because everything's all doom and gloom, but ultimately one of those 3 teams below us has got to win 2 games to leapfrog us at the minute. So yeah, that's probably giving Cooper a little bit of grace as well.
Yeah, just to finish off before we do a few player performances on a brief and then a Bournemouth prediction, a few comments. Raphael thought, never seen anyone testing the patience of Marinakis like Cooper. He said Jardim got sacked with 10 points clear at the top of the Greek league. Also, Nomad has agreed about you being patient, about Marinakis being patient, Christian. Defending a lead is not playing to our strengths. It's just asking opponents to attack. That's from DJ Tone. I agree with that. Jamie's put, as much as we need a striker, I think we need a keeper even more. I think clean sheet's more like, I don't think it's the goalkeeping. I really don't. It's not the goalkeeping that's letting us down. Although Turner, making a blunder. It's scoring goals wins your football matches, not goalkeepers, unfortunately. Anyway, let's do some player performances. Lee, I'm going to give you Oro Mangala, who I thought was actually quietly excellent against Yves Bissouma and Pape Sarr. To be honest, I thought he was so composed on the ball and continues to be our player of the season so far in my eyes.
Yeah, he was head and shoulders above any other Forest player, I thought, on Friday night. It's funny because I think since we said on the podcast we don't really know what sort of player it is, he's kind of, it's almost like he listens to the show and he's kind of thought, I'm going to show them what sort of player I am. yeah, he was very good. Very calm and composed. Doesn't necessarily do the whistles and bells, if you like, overly well. You know, if he tries a long ball, that sort of stuff, it's not really his game. Doesn't really suit him. I think he went to try one in particular to Williams at one point on the right, and it didn't. It went straight to a Tottenham player. That's just not his game. I just think Mangala's a better player when he keeps things nice and steady and keeps us ticking along. But yeah, he was either him or Williams would have been the shoe-in for man of the match, I think, on Friday.
Yeah. Reiss, Ryan Yates, I thought led by example in terms of more action and rather than quality, but someone that I think a performance that has been needed, but needed probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 games ago, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally chalk and cheese, wasn't it, from his performances against Fulham and Everton? He was literally smashing into anything in sight, which was brilliant. It's the desire and commitment that you need to see when you're down at the bottom struggling. I thought in the first, I thought he was absolutely excellent. I think second half, he just kind of took that many hits, a bit like a boxer. It kind of took it out of him a little bit. But yeah, we've always said, haven't we, on this podcast, I don't think you can 9 times out of 10, you can fault Yates's desire and commitment to the shirt. I don't think anyone's ever had that against him. It's just more his technical ability. But yeah, he did lead by example because, and we've said this team lacks leaders. Definitely first half, I thought he did that to a T. I think that's all that really needs to be said, really.
Yeah, definitely. And Christian, I'm super glad you're on this week because I have to give you Nico Williams because you can't not give him praise for the second week running. I thought he was actually really good against Son. To say how good Son, he's a world class player, world class winger. I thought he did really well against him until maybe the very end, he could probably beat him. A couple of balls in behind.
Yeah. Some was pretty poor. I thought that's testament to how Williams played. I think the Williams we're seeing from Wolves and Spurs, if you compare that player to the one that we saw last season, it's like night and day. So it's actually like looking at 2 different players because one's looks pretty confident defending, and one didn't. So it's I think for the first time we're starting to see probably why we sort of decided to fork out the one that we did. Again, it's still quite high for me. It's still a long way to go. Like we said with Yates, priorly. I mean, it's one thing having like 1 or 2 good performances, but he's got to be consistent now, and he's got to nail that like shirt his own. And to be fair, performances like Spurs will go no harm to doing that. I thought he was very good. Like his crossing was good. Like obviously we said again the Brighton game when he came on, his crossing was awful. Like it was going absolutely nowhere. But the last 2 games, it's been right straight in the right areas. Like he's been picking his men out well. He's been doing all the right things. So yeah, full credit to his turnarounds, and I hope it continues because ultimately, like I'd rather be wrong about a player, and that includes Matt Turner, and then than be right about them. Because obviously, if I'm right about saying a player is going to be bad for us, it means that hurts Forest. So I'd much rather say, oh, Williams is going to be terrible, and he was last season, but he's now good, than it sticks with the form when we move him on and the club makes a loss. So because I mean he wasn't that long ago we were saying that look, he'll probably go on loan to Leeds or someone like that and he'll go to the Championship on loan because he wasn't getting a kick. To be fair, whatever he's been doing on the training grounds, he's come back a completely different player. So fair play to him for that.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into Bournemouth predictions. Lee, they're on a good run. Obviously, like we mentioned yesterday, their game got abandoned yesterday, unfortunately, for what happened to Tom Lockyer, as we already said. How do you see it going? They're on a really good run and form. They're probably the informed team in the league. Without maybe, I think Liverpool might be running them close in that aspect. But Dom Solanke is also probably one of the most hottest strikers in the league at the moment. They're going to be a real threat at the City Ground. In all honesty, I'm quite worried.
I suppose, yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's funny how doing something like this and getting all the negative stuff off your chest can change your opinion of something. I think we might win. I've just got a sneaky feeling we might win. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm half expecting that Cooper might rip it up again and do something stupid like make another system change and what I would say is I don't think we can go into the Bournemouth game with the mindset of just defending and defending like we did against Tottenham, basically. So I think something, I don't know why, it's blind optimism maybe. I think we'll win. I think it'll be a bit of a goal fest like last season. And I think it might be 3-2 again. But I think it'll be in our favour this time. Let's have some
Wow.
positivity.
We're going to score 3 goals. My goodness.
why not?
Reiss, thoughts?
That's the level we've got to, that we're worried about Bournemouth coming to the City ground.
Well, yeah, because we're crap.
That's the level we've got to, Adam. I mean, I'm just looking at their form. I think before Friday night, the last 5 they're top of the league, Bournemouth. So just to add a little bit more, I don't know, mate. I do. My head says I can't see where the next win comes from. I just can't, because we're just in both boxes. We're just not doing enough. We're not creating enough, and we're making too many mistakes at the other end. And the side in form in Bournemouth, who play, apparently I've not watched Bournemouth, I don't think, at all this season. Their manager Iriola, is it? He likes to play football. He's got them going, hasn't he? He was pretty much on the verge of maybe getting sacked, really. And
Yeah, they beat Newcastle.
To be fair to Bill Foley, he stuck with him and he's got them going. So it's going to be tough, because they're going to be full of confidence. I mean, unforeseen circumstances yesterday, I'm not sure what effect that will have on them, but because that is just something you can't comprehend. But yeah, my head says, and I'm going to go in my head, I think it'll be a draw, and it'll be a 1-1 draw, and I just don't think that'll be enough. We have to win Saturday. We've got to win Saturday, because do you guys see us going to Newcastle away and winning, or beating Man United at home, and then you've not got a game then until, like I said, the 20th of January? You're even worried then about beating, if it is Blackpool in the FA Cup, because they've got a certain Jordan Rhodes on fire, who loves scoring past Forest. So,
Oh God.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to go for, mate. I'm like Lee said, and he's right ahead. I mean, I've said I'll back Steve Cooper to the end and that at the ground, and I will. But, at the end of the day, it's not Steve Cooper FC, it's Nottingham Forest FC. Forest, whoever is in charge, whether it's Martin O'Neill, Steve Cooper, Chris Hughton, Gary Megson, Forest need a win Saturday. That is the reality, whoever's in charge. And I'm just praying we can get a win for the club, because we're in a relegation battle and we need a win.
Yeah, definitely. Christian, anything to add?
Yeah, we're going to win. We're going to win 1-0.
Oh,
calling it now.
Bournemouth really like coming to the City ground, Christian.
No, I know. They're a bogey side for us. And I sort of think, I remember when we had them in a championship.
Get Lansbury and Lascelles back and we'll beat them.
We had him with Eddie Howe came in, scored a 90th minute equaliser to draw 1-1 with us. I mean, obviously we had last season's implosion. We lost there, obviously, for the promotion game. Obviously, that was at Dean Court, or the Vitality Stadium, what it was called now. But I think we're due a win. I think we're due something. I mean, we didn't deserve to lose to West Ham. We probably deserved something yesterday, really, or Friday night. You could argue, but for keeper throwing the game effectively. If you look at the chance that Bolly had, the Williams one that hit the post, the Toffolo header. Obviously talk about your luck being against you, but I think we've done enough to warrant something going our way, and that could just be blind optimism, of course, but. Because, on another day, all 3 of those efforts go. Oh, Bolly, who took it down like a champ, by the way, took it down like a prime striker, only to then volley it into someone's face in the Trent ends. But, on another day, that goes in. Another day, the Williams one goes off the other side of the post and goes in. Another day, Toffolo's header goes in. So I think that, if you look at another day, the Elanga one's flagged onside, and he gets that in as well. So I'm going to be a bit more optimistic. I think that, we've already shown once this season that the form team coming to the City ground isn't necessarily given. Aston Villa, there's no reason why we can't repeat that and hopefully give ourselves a bit of a Christmas present. I think we'll win 1-0.
Well, I like the optimism. I'm very much taking the leaf out of Lee Clark's pessimistic book this time around. This time of year, I think we'll lose. It's the end of Cooper. I think it's gonna. If we win, it's good, and if we lose and Cooper goes, for me, it's kind of good, and it's because we need to rip that Band-Aid off and kind of start again and get a new notepad out.
A loss isn't good in any sense, mate.
Well, it's not good. It's not good, but like we need to really either get rid of the manager or win. So do you know what I mean? It's for me, it's something.
I think if you had Pep Guardiola in charge, you'd struggle to get anything at Newcastle personally, but we'll see. We'll see.
We will see. But yeah, no, I think we'll lose 3-1 personally. That's just what I'm going for. I think Solanke, Semenyo, Clivert, Tavernier will have a joyous afternoon at the City Ground. I'm going to be honest with you. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you midweek for a Bournemouth preview. Enjoy the rest of your Sundays. Even though I've been very pessimistic, it's still a come on, you Reds.